Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's session that we're going to overview the BOES application, which is our bad order equipment status service, as well as recent enhancements made to this application that we made earlier in the year. My name is Debbie Sasko, and I'm the AVP of Information Services, and I also have with me here today Stacy Fagan, who's one of our program managers, as well as Payush Panchal, who is our IT director. Before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know they can submit questions during the webinar in the GoToWebinar control panel. On the right, we'll reserve some time at the end of the session to take any questions that are submitted. Any that we can't get to, we certainly will respond to you immediately following the webinar. We also ask everyone, there's a brief survey at the end of the webinar, and if you could take just a few minutes to complete that, we'd really appreciate your feedback as well. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Just the purpose of the BOES application, the application was developed as a means to provide a standard means and a standard format for intermodal equipment providers, facility operators, and maintenance and repair vendors to exchange bad order or equipment status information when they put equipment out of service and when that equipment goes back into a good order status by sending the release. When we first developed the application, there was the beta testers that were using it had indicated that they may want to use more detailed information when providing the actual repair information. So we add the ability for the system to convert marine and domestic damage coding, AAR to ISO code, and vice versa. However, once we got started with rolling with the application, the users soon indicated that users that are using it currently had indicated that they didn't need to go into that detail. So we're currently not using the AAR ISO conversion, but the ability is there. And then also users can use the system as a component to their proactive systematic maintenance programs to make sure that bad order equipment doesn't get off of the terminal before it's repaired. The next slide that you're looking at, information flow, is how the system works. As you can see here on your left-hand side, these are all the activities that can generate a bad order into the BOES application, either an on-terminal defect, a DVIR that's done at the gate, DVER that's done during a roadside inspection, if an FMCSA or California BIT inspection has expired, and then also we have the ability to do the container genset defects as well. This information would be provided into the BOES system by the intermodal equipment provider or the maintenance and repair vendor via 322. We also have the ability to accept XML and email. It goes into the bad order equipment status database, and the IEPs that are registered within the database would designate the facility operators at the locations they call at, as well as the maintenance and repair vendors for each of those locations. So anytime a transaction would come in from one of these events on this side, it would go into the application. It would call the gear application based on the alphanumeric of the equipment to see who that IEP was. We'd then identify the IEP for that location. We'd indicate or identify who they had designated as the facility operator and maintenance and repair vendors for that specific location, and then a 322 or XML or email, whatever communication method that those parties had selected, would receive the bad order information from BOES. Once that equipment is then repaired and the release is ready to be done, the maintenance and repair vendor or the IEP can transmit that information back into the BOES system. Again, we do a lookup by the alphanumeric chassis ID to find the bad orders that we currently have on that unit. We may have a single bad order, or there may be multiple bad orders that had been sent on it. And any of those bad orders based on the alphanumeric would be cleared based on the release that would be sent by the maintenance and repair vendor, and then the IEP would be notified, as well as the facility operator, that the unit was back in good order status. How's the BOES system work? Basically, what I just ran through as far as the information flow that I just showed you, the facility operator, the IEP, transmits information into the BOES application. We match that against the gear database to find out who the IEP is, and if there's a chassis pool ID provided, that information would be included on any communication that was transmitted back to the parties. We then send that information to whoever the IEP has designated for that specific location, and then get a transaction for a party or an IEP that's not a BOES subscriber, then if that information is being sent to us electronically from the sender, it would be rejected since that IEP was not currently using the BOES application. In regards to the driver vehicle inspection report, IANA does have a DVIR application where we process DVIRs that are sent to us from the parties that are using our service. When we receive that information, we look at the actual transaction to see if it's for one of the parties that are using our application. Are there also Advent, also chassis.com has processes in place that handle most of the marine community's DVIRs. If we find that it's for one of the parties chassis.com processes, we don't do anything with it. We simply transmit that information to chassis.com for processing the actual DVIR. The only thing we would do, however, is if the IEP is also a BOES subscriber and they have asked us to generate a bad order transaction for a DVIR where there's a defect that puts the unit out of service, we would do that and generate that transaction in the BOES application before we would forward it to chassis.com for processing. So if that was the case, we got a DVIR, it had an out-of-service defect, IANA would generate the bad order notification, transmit that to BOES, and then it would be transmitted to the appropriate parties based on who the IEP was and the facility operator and maintenance and repair vendor for that specific location that had been designated by the IEP. The DVER, IANA also has a DVER application. We currently can provide that information to parties that subscribe to that service via EDI, or also we transmit the information via email with a copy of page 2 of the DVER report. You can see here the information we would provide if the user wanted to receive the information via EDI. The only thing we cannot do is we cannot automatically generate a bad order transaction within the BOES application based on a DVER, since IANA does not know the location of where that equipment is. However, because we transmit that information to the IEP, if they're a subscriber of our DVER application, they in turn would be able to initiate a bad order transaction within the BOES application and have it go through the regular flow. Earlier this year, based on our initial set of users that had been using the BOES application, we implemented several enhancements throughout the year. We have a web portal for all the BOES activities that we've enhanced throughout the year with different functionality based on requests and feedback from the BOES subscribers. One of those functionalities that was asked for was the ability to do a bulk upload or reporting of bad order equipment or release notifications. So we have added that functionality within the web portal where we have an Excel template that we have for bad orders as well as a template for release notifications that users can use that information to actually upload multiple transactions at one time through the web portal. And we'll look at that once we go into the application. We also introduced a BOES flag within our global intermodal equipment registry so that if a BOES subscriber is also a gear subscriber and they have inventory registered in gear, they would be able to see whether that particular unit in their inventory has been placed in out of service or has been placed back in good order status by this BOES flag that simply provides a yes or no as to what the status of that piece of equipment is. But that information is only available if the user in BOES is also a subscriber of gear. When we initially started the BOES application, and still today, every transaction that we generate contains what we call a BOES request ID. In the beginning, users, if they wanted to release a piece of equipment, they would have to return that specific request ID in order for the system to know which unit to release. As we moved forward with the testing, it was determined that the better way to do that was not to worry about the specific request ID, but go by the alphanumeric chassis ID, which is how BOES handles that now. So if we get a bad order transaction and then we get a release following that, if there's multiple bad order transactions, that single release would release all the bad order transactions that were in the BOES application at that time and notify the appropriate parties. We also added the ability to process container genset bad orders and repair notifications. We enhanced some of our reporting capability that we include now. There's a report where users can track the turn time from when the unit was placed in a bad order status and then when that unit was actually released, so that you can see the metrics of the timing that it takes for the flow to take place. The other item that we added, there were some APs that actually have commercial arrangements with other intermodal equipment providers where they manage part of their inventory, their fleet, their chassis fleet. So we implemented a process where we can handle that within the BOES application, because right now, as I indicated, when we get a transaction that comes in, we then check it against GEAR to see who the responsible IAP is. So if that IAP is not a BOES subscriber, or it may be a unit for another IAP that sent the transaction to us, we have a way to indicate that any transactions that come in from that specific sender should be sent back to them. So we can handle those commercial arrangements too through the BOES application if they're present. And the last item that we're still currently working on is a new BOES mobile application that will provide the more efficient way, or another method for maintenance and repair vendors to put units in bad order status or release them. And we hope to have that ready by sometime mid-November. Certainly once it's ready, we'll go out to all of the subscribers and let them know that it's available. But it's going to be a real simple mobile app. It's not going to have a lot of bells and whistles on it. It's just going to be simply a quick and easy way for a maintenance and repair vendor to put a unit out of order, out of service, or bring it back into good order. So the web portal, the BOES application, as I indicated, has a web portal that a lot of our users utilize right now to transmit their transactions back and forth to the application. You can see here there's a bad order reporting screen where basically the user would enter the alphanumeric chassis ID, and then the IANA location code is based off of our IANA intermodal location code that IANA keeps for several of its applications that we use. And what we've done through the web portal is based on the specific locations that the user is designated for. Those locations would be the ones that would be displayed here. And the user can simply enter the first few letters of the location name. They can enter the IANA location code or the zip code in order to have that pre-populated list show up for them to select from. And then once they enter that information, then the facility name and the state is pre-populated based on what's entered here. The bulk bad order reporting that I just talked about, here's the screen that shows you that as well, where you can download the template, enter the chassis alphanumeric and the facility location code, which we can provide you with a list of the location codes, as well as it's always available on our DVIR website. And then you simply upload that file, and then we have a batch process that checks for files that are being uploaded, and then it would process that information and put the units in bad order status. And this view uploaded file list allows you to see what the status of the files are that you have uploaded. You have that same type of functionality for releasing equipment, where you can download the release template, and on that you're going to give us the alphanumeric chassis prefix, as well as who is approving the release and any comments that need to be indicated in regards to that release. And again, it's uploaded. We have a batch process that runs that, checks for those files, and then it would process the release and notify the appropriate parties. The search screen within the application is where you can search by any of these parameters shown at the bottom of the screen here: sender, transaction date, type, chassis ID, IEP, what type of defect, and status. There's 3 statuses: bad order, release, or rejected. The rejected status is basically solely used for those parties that provide information to us electronically. So if you're providing information to us via XML or EDI, if something comes in on the file where the formatting is off, it would reject the file and you would be notified, and it would be put in a rejected status. So the 2 main status categories within the application are actually the bad order and release, because that's what's going to be the majority of the time. As you can see here, based on whatever search criteria you use, it would bring back those units and you could see the status as to whether they're released or out of service. If you wanted to release a unit, you'd simply check the box next to that unit and click Release All Selected Equipment. You can release one unit or multiple units. You just have to check the box next to the units you need to want to release. This screen just talks a little bit more about the statuses that I just went over with you. So we'll move on to the next screen, where it actually shows you once you've made your selections as to what units you want to release, you'd click the Release All Selected Equipment. You'd get this pop box where you'd simply click the Repair Completed. You'd enter who it was, who's logged in as the party that's authorizing the release of the equipment, and then any comments that they would want to include with that, and then click the Submit button. At that point, the information of the transaction is generated within the BOES application. It looks to see who the IEP is, what the location is, and who the designated facility operator and maintenance and repair vendors are for that location, and then transmits that information to the appropriate parties. In our transactions, it takes anywhere from between 2 to 3 minutes for the transactions to process within the system. So with that, what I'd like to do is take you into the actual application so that you can see what that looks like. I mean, I showed you the screens, but we'll go into the actual application so you can see what it looks like. So when you log in, you're going to get a dashboard depending on the user that's logged in, where you can see how many transactions you've done today, how many total transactions you've done within the BOES application. You have an account settings tab where you can update your profile information, change your password. If you have a technical contact, if you're sending information to us electronically, you may want to set a specific party up for issues that may arise. Notification preferences, that is for how you want to receive information within the BOES application. And then your configuration screen. This is basically going to ask a lot of questions in regards to how you want to communicate with BOES. It'll ask you also if you want to do XML, EDI. It'll ask you also if you want us to generate bad order notifications should we receive a DVIR that has an out-of-service defect. Do you want us to do that automatically for you into the BOES application? And then also if you want to receive DVERs from us if you're not already doing so. Your user tab here will allow you to set up secondary users. You can set them up online by clicking this Add New Secondary User button, or you have the ability, if you wish, to do a bulk upload of users. So say you have a lot of users you want to add. Instead of you having to do it online, you simply complete this template and send it back to us, and we can do it for you from the back end of the system to save you the time of having to do the online entry. The bad order reporting screen, like I said, it would be simply entering the alphanumeric chassis ID. And then when you get to the location, you can just key in the first few letters. If you were looking for a BNSF location, you just key in the first few letters, or you can key the IANA location code or the zip code for that location, and then you can select what that is and click Save. It's going to tell you that the bad order was added successfully. It will let you see the request ID that's assigned to that actual transaction, but you don't need to have that information since we're not actually using that to release equipment. We're going by the alphanumeric chassis. So once that happens, the transaction would be generated into the BOES application. We would then send the information to the IEP that the transaction was on behalf of, as well as the designated facility operator and maintenance and repair vendor for that specific location. Again, we have the bulk upload functionality for both submitting bad order and release information, where you can download the template. This is a simple Excel file that you can download and then upload the information into the system. And then if you want to see what status your file's in, you simply can go to this screen and it'll show you the file you uploaded, the date you uploaded it, what the status is of that file, who uploaded it, what type of file it was, whether it was a bad order or a release file, and then give you the information in regards to any errors and how many records were successfully received. The same information is available for the release reporting, where you have your Excel template, and then you can view the file after you upload it to see what status it is. Bad order search screen, if I wanted to search for a unit that I had put on in bad order, I simply can put in any of these parameters. Here's the unit I just put in bad order, so if we search here, you'll see that that unit is showing here, out of service. So there was another out of service here as well. So if I wanted to release both of those, I'd simply click both units here, click the release all selected equipment, check the repair completed, enter my name saying who I am, that I'm repairing it, and then any type of message you would want to put associated with that repair, and then click submit, and then you can see that the units switch from out of service to release. And at that point, BOES notifies the appropriate IEP, maintenance and repair vendor, and the facility operator associated with these locations for that specific IEP. The mapping tab, when an IEP signs up to use the BOES application, they have to designate the locations they service. And for those locations, they need to let us know who the facility operator is at that location and who their maintenance and repair vendor is for those locations. So we have mapping tabs for both the facility operator, where you can search by state and then simply select the facility operators that you use at those locations, if you call it them. And the same goes for your maintenance and repair vendors. You simply select the maintenance and repair vendors for the facilities that you service. Then if you wanted to see all your selected facility operators within the BOES application, you have the ability to do that. So it'll show you a listing of all the facility operators you've selected, as well as the ability to see all of the maintenance and repair vendors you've selected for each location. The reports available in the BOES system, we have a BOES bad order report where you can do that by date range. It'll simply return a listing of the bad orders that have been received for the specific IEP that's logged in and the transaction date. The defect trend report allows you to search by DVIR, date range, or specific defect. If you're looking to see how many orders were pertaining to a specific type of defect, you have the ability to do that. If you click search, it's just simply going to return a number in regards to how many bad orders were associated with any of these 9 RCD codes and the transaction dates. And that's basically the web portal. That's the web portal as far as if you want to use that to report the bad order.